Well, hello. Psalm 37, which we'll be looking at today, is one of my favorite Psalms for a number of reasons, not least of which is because of verse 37. It's such a personal encouragement to me. Somehow, no matter how discouraged I feel or what I'm going through, reading it always makes me feel better. Now, in the New American Standard Version, verse 37 begins, Mark, the blameless man. And in the New King James Version, it begins, Mark, the perfect man. Unfortunately, the NIV misses the point altogether. And I believe this verse alone can prove the inspiration of the Bible. But seriously, this is a great psalm for you to return to over and over again. Reading it, meditating on it, and memorizing verses from it will go a long way in really giving you a right view of life. This psalm is a valuable guide to live by and to have a good worldview. Now, the opening verse is especially timely important for today. It instructs us to keep a quiet and confident spirit, no matter what ungodly people are doing. So let's read it. Do not fret because of evildoers, and do not be envious because of wrongdoers, for they will wither quickly like the grass and fade like the green herb. It says, do not fret because of evildoers. It's so easy to get worried or angry or fretful because of the ungodly actions of others, especially, it seems, in these days. It is easy to react emotionally to what we see on our television or our computer or smartphone screens. Many today report being angry or anxious or depressed. Our emotions are constantly being manipulated by politicians and the media. Instead, we are to live confidently because of our complete trust in God and His ways. Let's read that now, verse 3 through 5. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and cultivate faithfulness. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord, trust also in Him, and He will do it. Now it says instead of fretting, it tells us don't look around. Instead, look up. Instead of looking around at all the threats and chaos and disruptions, we are told to lift our gaze and put our eyes up on God. We read these words, trust in the Lord, and then delight yourself in the Lord, and then commit your ways to the Lord. Now, is there anything stopping you from doing that right now? Do you believe God is big enough and powerful enough? Now, if you spend more time watching the news or internet news sites than you spend reading the Bible or praying or in fellowship, then you are doing the opposite of what the psalm tells you to do. God says, look up. I am in charge. Trust in me. Learn my ways, and I will give you everything you need. In fact, even more, I will give you the very desires of your heart. Now, the antidote to worry, anger, and depression is to look up and trust in God. Delight yourself in God and fully commit your ways and your life to Him. This theme runs throughout the Psalms. Let's pick it up again in verse 7 and 8. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for Him. Do not fret because of him who prospers in his way, because of the man who carries out wicked schemes. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. Do not fret. It only leads to evil doing. Don't fret. Don't be angry. How many know there's way too much of that around right now? Instead, look up and rest in the Lord and wait patiently because He is faithful. The very next verse introduces us to a very important theme. Verse 9, for evildoers will be cut off, but those who wait for the Lord, they will inherit the land. You see, the earth and everything in it belongs to God, and He will give it to those who love Him. God is able to supply us at any time with whatever we need. And since God trains us as His stewards, He then delights in entrusting to us what belongs to Him. It is evildoers who are in a precarious position. Let me say that again. It is the evildoers who are in a precarious position. They are the ones who will be cut off or fall. Now listen to me. We should never feel like we are at a disadvantage in our Father's world. Now God wants us to be very clear on this point, so he repeats it several more times in the psalm. Let me just point out a couple of them. Verse 29. The righteous will inherit the land and dwell in it forever. And then verse 34. Wait for the Lord and keep his way, and he will exalt you to inherit the land. Now, this is, of course, true for the end of time when we inherit a renewed and remade heavens and earth. But this principle is also at work today and every day. God wants to displace the evildoers and give the stewardship of his world to his godly people who walk in his ways. It is quite clear. God said it and he means it. And we at Foothills Church have lived this way for over 30 years, and it has been proven true in our experience. I will not be afraid, nor will I give way in my Father's world. Verse 11 is almost identical to what Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount. Let's read it. But the humble will inherit the land and will delight themselves in abundant prosperity. Remember, Jesus said in Matthew 5:5, blessed are the meek, or blessed are the humble, for they shall inherit the earth. And the meek can be defined as those who trust God and wait upon him to reward them with good things, as opposed to the one who pridefully and selfishly fights with others to grasp those things for himself without even acknowledging that they all belong to God. We are not to fret at frightening or difficult circumstances, or our deliverance rests in the fact that God knows us and he loves us as his children. Let me read verse 18 and 19. The Lord knows the days of the blameless, and their inheritance will be forever. They will not be ashamed in the time of evil, and in the days of famine they will have an abundance. Listen, even in these days we're in today, we should not fear as others do, because the Lord knows and acknowledges us as his own. To back this up, David gives a personal testimony of his own life in verse 25. I have been young, and now I am old, yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, or his descendants begging for bread. The Christian will encounter troubles and sorrows, but we are never alone. My friends, we are never forgotten. We are never abandoned. Isn't it wonderful to belong to the Lord? And God's promises are forever. We must remember that much of our reward must wait until the next life. So we must keep the eternal long view in perspective. Verse 28, for the Lord loves justice and does not forsake his godly ones. They are preserved forever, but the descendants of the wicked will be cut off. Though we'll see God's judgments and deliverances in this life, ultimately we'll have to wait for the next life to get that forever perspective. Now, this psalm is good for our spiritual and mental health. It gives us peace of mind, and it enables us to live with a joy and a confidence no matter what the circumstances are. And so I recommend that you do as I do and turn to it often to help you make those little adjustments in your attitude and those little mental tune-ups that we require as you go through this life. God bless you, and walk with the Lord.